Here's a question no one's asking. Why do some women walk into a room and instantly command attention without trying too hard? It's not the dress, not the makeup, and it's definitely not just their looks. It's something subtle, quiet, almost invisible, but powerful enough to leave a man thinking about her hours later. Welcome to the secret weapon most women overlook, the art of the subtle compliment. No, we're not talking about cheesy praise or over-the-top flattery. In fact, the compliments that actually hook a man emotionally are the ones that barely sound like compliments at all. In this video, I'm going to show you why subtle compliments aren't just nice words. They're psychological triggers that tap directly into a man's sense of identity, confidence, and emotional connection. If you've ever wanted to be unforgettable to the right man without playing games or losing your authenticity, then this is the one skill you must master. Let's unlock the language of subtle seduction and show you how to say less but mean more. Most people think male attraction is just about physical appearance. A nice smile, a certain figure, the way you dress. And while yes, those things can spark initial interest, they don't create emotional attachment or lasting desire. What actually pulls a man in and keeps him coming back is how you make him feel about himself when he's around you. Here's the truth. Men are emotionally wired to respond to women who reflect back their sense of value, but not in an obvious praise-filled way that often feels forced or even suspicious. What really triggers that deep attraction is when a woman makes a man feel seen, respected, and admired in the subtlest ways possible. This taps into something primal. Every man, no matter how confident or successful, carries quiet insecurities. When you give a well-placed, sincere compliment that touches on something he values about himself, it activates his reward system. He starts to associate you with confidence, validation, and emotional safety. That's powerful. For example, instead of saying, "You're so successful," which sounds generic, imagine saying, "The way you handle challenges so calmly is honestly impressive." You've just complimented his emotional intelligence, something most women overlook. And now he's thinking, wow, she gets me. Psychologically, this creates what's called emotional imprinting. The brain stores experiences that spark strong positive feelings. So even a single well-timed compliment, if it aligns with a man's identity, can stick with him longer than a flirtatious look or a physical gesture. And here's the kicker. When the compliment is subtle, it doesn't put pressure on him to perform or react. It feels organic, genuine, and that authenticity lowers his emotional defenses, making connection feel effortless. This is the reason why men often fall hardest for the woman who isn't trying to impress them, but simply reflects their best self back to them in small intentional moments. That's the real psychology of male attraction. And it all starts with your words. Not many, but the right ones. So if you want to go beyond surface level chemistry, start paying attention to what he values most about himself and learn to mirror it subtly. Let's talk about the difference between a compliment that's subtle and one that's just plain obvious. Now, both come from the same place. You're trying to show appreciation, admiration, or connection. But here's the issue. When a compliment is too obvious, it loses its magic. It feels like it's trying to get a reaction. It puts pressure on the moment. And men, especially confident or emotionally aware ones, can sense when something feels a little too performative. Think about it like this. An obvious compliment is like using a spotlight. It's bright, it's loud, and it's hard to ignore, but it can make someone feel self-conscious. A subtle compliment, on the other hand, is more like candlelight. It creates warmth, it adds atmosphere, and it leaves room for curiosity to grow. For example, saying, "You're so handsome" is obvious. It's fine, but it's surface level, and he's probably heard it before, maybe even that same day. But saying, "You have this way of making people feel really comfortable around you," it's rare, feels different. You're not commenting on his appearance. You're complimenting his energy, his presence, his impact, and that strikes a much deeper chord. Subtle compliments work because they're not seeking validation. They come from observation. They show that you notice the small things about him that others miss. And here's where it gets interesting. When your compliment touches something he values, but doesn't usually get recognized for, it hits differently. It feels personal, even intimate, and that creates emotional gravity. Obvious compliments are often tied to appearance, status, or achievements, things people already celebrate him for. Subtle compliments dig deeper. They speak to his character, his effort, his quiet strengths. And because they're unexpected, they linger longer in his mind. Timing and tone matter too. A subtle compliment is often dropped casually, like a passing thought, not delivered like a grand declaration. You might say it with a soft smile, in the middle of a conversation, and then just move on. That's the secret. You give it, and you let it go. That creates intrigue. He'll replay it in his mind because you didn't pause and wait for approval. You weren't trying to impress him. You were simply being real. Another key difference is how a subtle compliment makes you look. It shows emotional intelligence. It reveals that you're observant, thoughtful, and not desperate for attention. That energy is magnetic. It shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, you're the one holding emotional power, not because you're manipulating, but because you're grounded and self-aware. So if you've ever wondered why some compliments stick, while others fall flat, this is why. The subtle ones work because they feel earned, not given away too easily. And when you learn to master that balance, of being kind, observant, and emotionally precise, your words stop being just words. They become influence. Let's get into what you really came for. The compliments that actually work. Not the generic ones. Not the overly sweet ones. But the subtle, thoughtful lines that men remember. These are compliments that land differently because they feel sincere, unique, and tailored. And they're powerful because they often catch him off guard in a good way. Here's the first one. You have a really calming presence. Now you're not complimenting his looks, his career, or his status. You're highlighting how he makes people, or specifically you, feel. This makes him associate his presence with something positive, without you putting him on a pedestal. It's not flashy, but it's deeply flattering. Another one. You think in such a creative way. I didn't expect that. This works especially well if he's in a career or role where he's usually seen as logical or straightforward. You're showing him that you see a layer he doesn't usually get credit for. That contrast between how others view him and how you do. That's where subtle impact lives. Try this one in conversation. I like how you explain things. It's never condescending. It just makes sense. This one hits because it's showing appreciation for his intelligence and his emotional intelligence. You're complimenting the way he communicates, which is one of the most overlooked forms of attraction. Or something like, you're the kind of person people feel safe around. That's a big one. Not everyone gets told that. And if it's true, it'll land right in the center of his self-worth. You're giving him something to be proud of, without exaggerating or over-delivering it. You can also use subtle compliments to flirt, like, you have this quiet confidence, it's kind of addictive. What's great about this is you're teasing a little, but you're also showing that you notice his energy, not just how he looks or what he owns. That's what makes it subtle. It's not trying to win him over. It's just an honest observation. Here's another. I love how focused you get when you're talking about something you're passionate about. Again, it's not about the topic. It's about how he shows up. That attention to detail makes the compliment land deeper because it proves you're genuinely paying attention. And don't underestimate one like, you don't talk just to fill space. I respect that. That one is gold for men who are introverted or thoughtful. You're telling him that silence doesn't make him less interesting. It makes him more intriguing. The power of all these examples is in the delivery. Keep your tone relaxed, your body language casual, and don't linger on the compliment. Say it, mean it, and move on. That creates mystery. It makes him want to chase more of that validation, because it doesn't feel handed out, it feels earned. These are the compliments that don't scream attraction. They whisper it. And that whisper, that's what stays with him. Now, let's talk about the flip side. The mistakes that completely kill the impact of a compliment. Because as powerful as subtle flattery can be, if it's done the wrong way, it actually pushes men away instead of pulling them closer. And unfortunately, a lot of women fall into these traps without even realizing it. The first mistake, overdoing it. When compliments come too frequently or feel too intense too soon, they stop feeling meaningful. If you're constantly saying things like, you're amazing, "You're so perfect," or "I've never met anyone like you," it starts sounding like you're performing, not connecting. Even if you genuinely feel that way, overpraising can feel like pressure. It makes him question whether you're seeing him, or just an idea of who you want him to be. Second mistake, being too focused on appearance. It's easy to fall into the habit of complimenting a guy's looks, especially if he's attractive. But if every compliment you give is about his body, his style, or his smile, it can start to feel shallow. Men, just like women, want to be seen for more than the surface. When all the compliments are skin deep, it doesn't create real connection. It creates distance. Third mistake, timing compliments when you want something. This one is subtle, but men pick up on it. If the only time you praise him is when you're asking for a favor, trying to win an argument, or seeking attention, it can feel manipulative. A compliment loses its power when it's tied to an agenda. The best ones come unexpectedly, in quiet moments when there's nothing to gain. Next up, being generic. Saying "you're so smart" or "you're such a good guy" sounds nice, but it lacks depth. It's the difference between microwaved and homemade. If it sounds like something you'd say to any man, it won't leave a mark. Specific compliments, like "you have a way of making complex ideas sound simple," feel more personal, and personal always feels more powerful. Another common mistake, chasing a reaction. When you give a compliment and then wait, staring, smiling, expecting some kind of big response, it makes the moment awkward. It signals that you didn't give the compliment freely, but were hoping for something in return. True subtlety means you say it, you mean it, and then you let it go. If it hit, it hit. If not, it wasn't about getting validation anyway. Finally, complimenting from insecurity. If you're using praise to prove your worth, like "you're so successful, I don't know why you'd even want to talk to me," it doesn't build attraction. It actually lowers your value in the dynamic. Subtle compliments are most powerful when they come from a place of self-confidence, not self-doubt. Remember, a well-placed compliment is like a spark, but too much too fast or used the wrong way, it burns out the connection before it even begins. So you've delivered a subtle compliment, casually, confidently, and without expectation. Now what? How do you know if it actually landed? The truth is, men often won't respond with a dramatic reaction. That's what makes subtle compliments so interesting. The real signs that it's working are often quiet, non-verbal, and easy to miss, unless you're paying attention. One of the first things to look for is a shift in body language. If you compliment him and he suddenly sits up straighter, tilts his head, or leans in slightly, that's a good sign. He may not even realize he's doing it, but subconsciously, he's opening himself up to you, literally and emotionally. It's like his body is saying, "That felt good. I want more of that." Another big one is the pause. If he stops for a moment after you say something, maybe he smiles to himself, looks down briefly, or gets a little quiet, that usually means it hit. He's processing it. Don't rush in to fill the silence. Let it sit. That moment of stillness, that's where attraction deepens. Also, pay attention to his eyes. If his gaze lingers on you longer than usual, or if he starts watching you more intently during the conversation, that's a signal. Subtle compliments don't just boost his ego, they pull his focus toward you. He starts looking at you differently, because you've just made him feel seen in a way most people don't. Now here's something interesting. Some men will respond with a light deflection or joke. They might say, "Oh, you think so," or "I've never heard that before," with a smirk. That's not rejection, that's often them testing the moment. They're curious if you were being sincere, or if you're just being nice. Don't over-explain. A simple smile, or "yeah, I noticed it right away," is enough to reinforce your intent. Another sign it's working, he brings it up later. Maybe he references what you said in another conversation, or teases you about it in a playful way. That means it's stuck. It replayed in his mind. Subtle compliments don't always create fireworks in the moment, but they echo. And then there's the biggest sign of all. He starts giving more energy back to you. That could mean he starts opening up more, asking deeper questions, making longer eye contact, or initiating conversations. When you compliment a man in a way that affirms who he wants to be, it builds trust, and trust invites intimacy. So if you're watching closely, his posture, his tone, his pacing, and even his silences, you'll see the truth without him needing to say much. Subtle compliments aren't about what he says in return. They're about what he shows you without even realizing it. When you start noticing these signs, that's when you know you're not just being heard, you're being felt. Sometimes it's not about saying more. It's about saying the right thing at the right moment, in the right tone. That's what makes certain phrases stick in his mind. Not because they were loud, not because they were sexy or clever, but because they were felt, the right words. When delivered softly and authentically, don't just impress a man, they haunt him in the best way. Let me give you a few powerful phrases that leave an emotional imprint and make him think about you long after the conversation ends. Try this one. There's something about the way you think. I find it really attractive. What this does is link his mind, his intelligence, and his inner world to desire. You're not just saying he's smart, you're saying the way his mind works turns you on. That's not something most women say. And because it's not about his looks or his achievements, it cuts deeper. Here's another one. You make things feel easier when you're around. That's subtle. It doesn't scream admiration, but it lands like a soft compliment he won't forget. You've just associated his presence with peace and comfort. That's powerful because it appeals to his instinct to be your safe place without making him feel responsible or pressured. Or how about this? You notice things no one else does. I love that. This one is especially effective for men who tend to be observant or detail-oriented. It tells him you see the part of himself that often goes unacknowledged. And now, you've become the person who values what others overlook. Here's one with a little mystery. You have a kind of energy that's hard to explain, but it pulls people in. The beauty of this phrase is that it's not fully defined. It creates curiosity. You're not putting him in a box. You're suggesting there's something magnetic about him, even if you can't fully name it. And that makes him wonder what else you might be seeing in him that others don't. You can even keep it light and playful with something like "You're dangerously good at making me feel comfortable." It's cheeky, it's fun, and it plants a seed. It teases just enough to open a flirtatious door without making anything too serious. Those kinds of phrases create tension, and tension, when handled right, leads to chemistry. What all these phrases have in common is subtle emotional precision. They don't beg for attention. They don't overdo it. They're confident, casual, delivered with a smile, and then dropped like a feather. No chasing, no over-explaining. You say it, and you let him sit with it. And believe me, he will. Because the truth is, men remember how you made them feel in those little moments. And a woman who knows how to touch a man's ego without stroking it too hard, that's the one he keeps thinking about. Knowing what to say is important, but knowing when to say it, that's where the magic really happens. Because the timing of a compliment can either amplify its effect or completely dull it. It's not just about the words, it's about the moment you choose to speak them. The most powerful compliments are the ones he doesn't see coming. When they're not used as a reward, not used to fill awkward silence, not thrown in to get a reaction. They land best when they feel organic, when they slip into the moment naturally, almost like an afterthought. That's when a man's guard is down, and that's when he actually feels it. One of the best times to give a compliment is right after he's done something he didn't think you noticed. Maybe he helped someone, solved a problem, handled stress calmly. Instead of pointing it out immediately, give it a beat, let it pass, and then say, "By the way you handled that was really impressive." That delayed recognition, that pause before you give praise, it adds weight. It tells him you weren't just reacting in the moment, you really saw it. Another high-impact moment, right in the middle of laughter or ease. When things feel light, unguarded, human. Drop a quick line like, "You're actually really fun to be around," while smiling and looking away. Then move on. No need to linger. That contrast between lightness and sincerity is unforgettable. He won't say much, but trust me, it'll replay in his mind. Also, complimenting him after he's opened up about something personal. That's huge. When a man shares a piece of himself, even if it's small, that's vulnerability. If you say something like, "That actually makes me respect you even more," he won't forget it, because now your compliment is layered. You're not just reacting to what he said, you're rewarding his courage to say it. One more timing trick. Compliment him when the moment is quiet. Not during a big story, not when everyone's talking, not when there's noise, but when it's just the two of you, maybe walking, sitting in silence, or just having a calm conversation. That stillness gives your words more gravity. He feels them more deeply when there's space around them. The truth is, subtle compliments are like emotional seeds. You plant them when he's not expecting it, and over time they grow. Not because you pushed them, but because you trusted the moment. That's what makes your words linger in his mind. Not the volume, not the drama, but the timing, the unexpected softness of a few honest words dropped exactly when he needed to hear them, even if he didn't know he did. By now, you understand that subtle compliments aren't just about being nice, they're about being intentional, emotionally intelligent, and quietly magnetic. But before we wrap, I want to leave you with a few final tips that will help you truly embody this skill. Not just use it occasionally, but live it in a way that feels effortless and authentic. First, remember, subtlety doesn't mean being small. It means being strategic. It means you know your worth so deeply that you don't need to oversell anything. Not yourself, not your praise, not your interest. When you give a compliment, it should feel like a moment of clarity, not a performance. That calm confidence is what makes it irresistible. Second, slow down. Rushing kills subtlety. When you're too eager, too quick to flatter, it doesn't land, it just floats away. Give your words space. Let your tone breathe. Sometimes the pause after you say something is what makes it powerful. Silence isn't awkward when you're grounded. It becomes part of your presence. Third, make eye contact, but not in a way that's intense or confrontational. Think softness. Think curiosity. When you're delivering a compliment, your energy should feel like an invitation, not a spotlight. You're letting him in, not putting him on display. And this is important. Don't wait for a moment to be perfect. Practice this skill in small, everyday interactions. Whether it's with a guy you're dating, a colleague, a friend, watch how people light up when they feel genuinely seen. The more you observe, the more natural it becomes. It stops being a tactic, and it starts becoming a part of how you move through the world. Also, don't fake it. Ever, a subtle compliment only works when it's real. If you don't mean it, don't say it. Forced flattery is easy to spot, and nothing kills attraction faster than a compliment that feels like it came from a script. Authenticity is your secret weapon. Trust it. Finally, remember this: men are not immune to words. They may not show it the same way. They may not always react in the moment, but they remember, especially when the compliment touches something they value but rarely get praised for. That's how you separate yourself from everyone else. You don't try harder, you see deeper. You've already got everything you need to be unforgettable. Subtle compliments are just one tool, one very powerful, very feminine tool in your toolbox. Use it wisely, use it with intention, and most of all, use it from a place of self-assured grace. Because the woman who doesn't need to say much but says just enough, she's the one who stays on his mind. As we wrap up, I want you to take a moment and really let this sink in. Becoming irresistible isn't about changing who you are. It's about refining the way you express who you already are. One word, one glance, one subtle compliment at a time. Every connection you make, every moment you share, becomes richer when you speak with intention and confidence. When you master the art of subtle compliments, you're not just handing out words, you're giving pieces of yourself that build trust, spark curiosity, and create real emotional impact. Remember, the power isn't in overwhelming someone with constant praise or loud declarations. The true power lies in the quiet moments when you say exactly what needs to be said in a way that feels genuine and effortless. It's those moments that linger in his mind, that make him wonder, that pull him closer. So whether you're just starting to practice or you've been honing this skill for a while, know this: every small step counts. Each thoughtful word you choose adds up, building a magnetic energy around you that's impossible to ignore. And here's the secret: no one tells you this isn't about impressing him or winning him over. It's about embracing your own feminine strength and letting that shine through your words. When you speak from that place, you don't just attract men, you inspire respect, admiration, and deep connection. I challenge you to start noticing the little opportunities every day to drop a subtle compliment, to truly see the people around you and to speak with that quiet confidence. Watch how your relationships begin to shift, how the energy changes, and how you naturally become the woman who's unforgettable. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because there's so much more ahead to help you unlock your feminine power. Remember, becoming irresistible isn't about rushing, it's about mastering the art, one word at a time. I'll see you in the next video.